Hello humans and welcome to another installment of 6 Awesome Facts. This time we are covering my personal nerdgasm, Final Fantasy. This is hands down my favorite game series of all time. The only reason I bought a PS3 was for the Final Fantasy X remaster. I mean, that's literally what convinced me to buy a PS3. So I mean, this is awesome to me. I love the entire series. I've never played a bad Final Fantasy game. Despite what some people may think about 13, I even enjoyed that. Call me a fanboy, call me what you will, but I hope you guys enjoy this, and here we go! Okay, number 1 is the creator of Final Fantasy also popularized the Japanese dating sim scene. While not particularly well known on this side of the Pacific, dating sims in which the player attempts to romance various virtual ladies are kind of a big thing in Japan. These games are at best kind of sad and at worst just outright porn, so it may come as a surprise that the whole misbegotten genre was more or less spawned by Final Fantasy mastermind and overall genius Hironobu Sakaguchi. Before he made Final Fantasy, he created all kinds of games for Square, including one called Nakayama Miho no Tokimeki High School, a game in which you, a high school kid, try to woo popular at the time Japanese idol Miho Nakayama. The game wasn't the first Japanese sim, but it was the first to feature a real-life celebrity, and it was the first to really make it big mainstream. Also interestingly, the game was co-produced with Nintendo itself, with Metroid co-creator Yoshio Sakamoto working on the game. Nintendo was always not as family-friendly as they want you to think. Okay, next up is Final Fantasy really could have been the final game in the series. We're talking about the first one. We've all seen the comments. Nobody's gonna say they haven't. Hell, I've even made a few of them. Final Fantasy, there's like 50 of them. When's the final part gonna happen? Well, Final Fantasy's name could have been much more literal. Back in 1987, Square was coming off a series of flops and was actually on its last leg financially. After Dragon Quest hit big in Japan in 1986, Sakaguchi convinced his bosses to let him make an RPG, but few in the company had high hopes that the game would be a success. Most assumed Final Fantasy was going to be just that, Square Enix's final hurrah before bankruptcy. Sakaguchi also assumed it would be his final shot at being a video game writer and designer, and that he'd be forced to drag his ass back to university, pursue a different career, and just overall his quest for gaming fame would be over. It was this finality in the air and gloom that led Final Fantasy, that led Fighting Fantasy to be renamed Final Fantasy. Thankfully, the original release of Final Fantasy would sell over 400,000 copies in Japan, save Square Enix and give birth to, in my opinion, one of the most loved series of all time. Okay, next up is that Sid is not in the first game. Now, if you've ever played Final Fantasy, any Final Fantasy except the first one, you know who Sid is. He's usually an airship owning character, a ship captain, stuff like that, a mechanic, things like that. Obviously, this includes the original Final Fantasy, right? No. Actually, the original NES version of Final Fantasy is completely Sidless, although later versions of the game for the PlayStation and Game Boy Advance put Sid back into the game's world, and I hate to say it, but there was no chocobos in the original one either. Sorry. Okay, Gilgamesh of Final Fantasy V is actually the first recurring boss in the Final Fantasy series. He appeared in the Dawn of Souls remake of Final Fantasy IV, and the after years, Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy XI, Final Fantasy XII, as well as Revenant Wings, Final Fantasy XIII, as well as 13-2, Final Fantasy 14, my apologies, and Type O, not to mention the numerous series spin-offs in which he made a cameo. In each game, he retains a humorous, slapstick personality and affinity for collecting weapons. Okay, this next one I actually didn't know about, I didn't think about, and it was really cool to me. After the battle with Biran and Yankee in Final Fantasy X on Mount Gagazet, the pair states that they will make a statue of Yuna with a grand horn on its head. While on the surface, and what I thought was it was a reference to the Ronso, it is actually a reference to summoners of past Final Fantasy games having horns that they channel their magic through. I didn't even think about that. I thought that was really cool. Okay, last up, we have what most people consider perfect fantasy. Final Fantasy IX is somewhat unique in the series as it was seen by series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi as the closest to his ideal view of what Final Fantasy should be. But it was also almost not going to be released as a mainstream Final Fantasy title. Squaresoft at first thought the game should have been a Gaiden or side story game. The game breaks the formulas of Final Fantasy in a number of ways. It features the only title logo not designed by Yoshitaka Amano, can have up to 2 players controlling the party during combat. Those feature wasn't actually mentioned in the manual. And the ending was changed 7 times, whereas most mainline titles have their conclusion set in stone before full production commences. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, one of my favorite series of all time. I actually read that Final Fantasy X and X2 are going to be released on Steam remastered Friday. I would assume, the 13th, which is tomorrow. I am so excited. I am going to have to scrimp and save. Hell, I will fucking sell my ass on the street corner for this game. But anyway, guys, if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, subscribe, and please share. And if you didn't, make sure to punch, slap, and kick that dislike button in the face. And as always, I'll see you next time. Goodbye!